Hey there. So I had a question asking what are timelines? Um, it's really interesting because I'm sitting here this morning and I want to, me being the kind of person that I am, I want to research and try to figure out how to explain it the very best way. And immediately my guides are like, no, just listen and channel this through. So I'm like, okay, this is even a lesson for me in learning to tune more into 5D, um, and be more aligned in 5D, which is not going to be logical or make any rational sense, you guys. So, again, me being who I am, I'm like, I like to research and I like to know the details and make sure that whatever I'm bringing, like whatever I'm teaching, there's something solid behind it. And when I got ready to, get out my notebook and everything, my guides were like, Jen, just sit and channel. So when I'm talking about timelines, especially when it's a channeled message, this is one of those things like where you have to start as we're ascending, right? As we're becoming more and more spiritually rooted, as we're becoming more and more spiritually aligned, and as we bridge the gap closer and closer between spirituality and human experience, right? Because that's one of the things my guides have been saying since I, like, in 2013 when I first started my YouTube channel. That was when they said you've got to bridge the gap between the spiritual piece and the human piece, and how do you blend those together so that you're living in this wholeness, meaning that body, mind, spirit, soul, all integrated together. Okay, so this is where I talk about the 5 pillars, which is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and galactic energy. All of those need to be blended together, to be able to fully experience this life in the 5D realms that we're moving into. Now, the ascension or the up leveling or the rising, right? Because I always like to bring everything back to um, the base root of the words. Okay, so ascension simply means to rise. So the energy is rising on the planet, the frequency is rising on the planet, the galactic energy is coming in at a higher rate. We're going through like this photon belt where the neutrinos, and the gamma rays and whatever all of the scientific stuff is behind that, they all they're all increasing in intensity and, even in volume. Like I'm trying to, like, the volume of it is more. I can see it, but it's hard to even put some of this stuff into words, you guys, as I'm seeing it the way that my guides are explaining it. So I like to explain everything as basic as I can. And so it's almost like if you think of barometric pressure, and I know some of you have heard me say this before, but it's always a good reminder, even for myself, because of how the energies are coming in. So um, it's almost as if not only is the barometric pressure changing, but the galactic universal energy is becoming more intense and more strong. So um, when I start talking about, well, and especially because these are the things that come through when I channel, when they're talking about timelines and different realities and different dimensions, it's almost as if there's so many different layers to reality that our human mind can't comprehend it, which is why a lot of the times my guides will say, this is when you allow your soul to remember. Okay, because if you try to use logic and rationalize what's coming through, it's not going to make sense. When we're looking at timelines, it's kind of like the movie Interstellar, where there's all of these different levels of reality happening at the same time. And there's different dimensions, and then there's different timelines. So the dimensions are just a different level of awareness. So I've explained this before, like, here as humans, if this was a radio dial, right, we would be tuned into the frequency of, let's say, 88.9. We'll just pick a station, right? So that would be the human level of frequency. When you tune into the more like elemental realms, so like fairies and unicorns and things like that, you would dial up the radio a little bit more. So it would be like 92.9 or something. And then as you move into like the angelic realms, you would be at like 96 point something. And then the archangels would be a little bit higher vibration. And the ascended masters would be maybe just another one number up or something like that. Like you just dial in, it's all real and it's all happening at the same time. It's just in a different dimension, a different frequency. So it's just when you tune in, it's a matter of tuning into different frequencies, which is why meditation is so powerful, right? Because that allows you to slow down a little bit. And when you can slow down and breathe, your senses become more able to process clearly. Whereas if you're in a hurry and you're busy and you're going about your daily thing, you're only tuned into your frequency of your 3D reality that's happening right now, right? So when you can meditate and slow down, it's almost like if you're, say you're walking in nature, if you're going on a hike, but you're doing a power hike because you really want to get a good workout, you're not going to notice the way the leaves fall here and there. And you're not going to notice the sounds of the breeze going through the trees or the sounds of the squirrels running around. You're going to miss all that because you're on a power hike. You're going to exercise and you're just going in a hurry and you're really focused on making your muscles work and do your workout. Whereas if you go on a hike and it's calm and leisurely and you're breathing in the air, you're going to notice all the sounds that are in the nature, wherever you're hiking. If there's a stream, you're going to hear the water running. If there's a breeze, you might hear it rustling through the trees. Do you see what it's just like that? It's like, it's how are you taking in your reality and what are you open to receiving? So that's how it would make sense as far as tuning into other dimensions. Now, when we start talking about timelines, this is kind of where it gets into Interstellar. And I said this before, I really didn't like that movie. It stressed me out a little bit, but I can see how that made sense for that movie to even come out because it helps explain. And this is the quantum science stuff, you guys, that I know there's scientists who study this, but I can't wrap my head around it. So I have to just trust my guides. And above all, you guys, I trust God more than anything. And I'm telling you, God is so much bigger than we've ever even remotely thought. And the Bible is just one little tiny piece. Like it doesn't even cover the expansiveness of what God truly is. So we have to have faith beyond, right? So this is where we're getting into the space now that as we do the ascension, as we're moving in vibration into a higher frequency, we have to have more faith and trust than ever because we're not going to be able to logically understand and rationalize the experiences. Timelines are multiple things happen, multiple realities actually happening at once. Now here's the thing with our human brain and how we've been raised up until now, right? We think of it like, if you would think of a timeline like 10 years ago, if you would have said, what's the timeline? I would have been like, okay, well, in 2 years, we'll do this. In 3 years, we'll do that. In, 6 months, like you would have a timeline, right? Like at this age, you go to school and then 5 years later, you go to, a different, whatever, like there's a timeline as to how long it takes for you to get through something, right? So like for so many years, you would be in preschool and then you would go into primary school and then you would go into middle school or junior high or whatever it was. That would be like a timeline. So again, like for your business, what's the timeline? Well, the first 3 months, I'm going to work on building the foundation, getting the website ready, thinking about what I'm going to offer, blah, blah, blah. Then the next part of the timeline, 6 to 9 months, you would work on doing, your offers and really opening up to customers and these kind of things, right? So there would be a timeline or a trajectory. That is not what we're talking about when we start talking about spiritual and quantum ideas of timelines. When we get into the quantum space, when we get into the spiritual space, basically what it is, and this is where I have to just lean on my guides to give me the words because it's really hard to explain it. But the more spiritual work you do, the more it's going to resonate and the more it'll just be awakened within you. And this is where I say, like, let your soul remember. Okay. It's like there's multiple realities happening at one time. And so the timelines would be, maybe there's 5 timelines and all of them have like a theme that seems significant. Whatever your soul is learning may seem significant, but there's like 5 different ways it plays out. Those would be different timelines. And again, this is the part that you can't rationalize. You have to just trust and see how it feels. But it's like there's so many different realities and possibilities. My guides have been talking about limitless possibility. And so when we're talking about timelines, it would be as if what you're experiencing is happening in all these different levels, in all different time, space, and dimensions, but with a current theme, right? Especially if you're becoming aware of it right now. If you're becoming aware of it right now, then that would mean that there are multiple timelines where you're learning a similar lesson. And the soul essence of you is experiencing all of these simultaneously, because in spirit, there is no time. So it could feel like past life stuff. It could feel like future life stuff, but maybe it's all occurring at the same time in different timelines. So it's really a struggle, you guys, to try to make this make sense. So I hope this is working. I hope that you're getting the idea of how this kind of how to somewhat even remotely wrap your head around it. Okay, so what my guides are showing me is if you've ever been to like a city where they have like those flyover lanes where it's like I don't even know how to explain the highways, but where the highways are like you split and then you go up on this big ramp and it takes you like in a loop. In Denver it used to be the mousetrap, but they changed it. I don't even know what it's called now, but where there's different layers of the road, right? So I like to explain things as basic as possible. So imagine that you're driving down a highway, but there's like 5 highways that are all stacked on top of each other, and they're all maybe going the same direction. There may be a few curves and turns here and there, but really that they're all kind of headed in the same direction. So it would be like 5 different possible realities that are happening at the same time. So when you do like a quantum jump or a paradigm shift or a timeline jump, it would be like changing which part of the 5-layer highway you're driving on. That feels like the most basic way to explain it. Now the thing is too, because we're so much bigger and we are so much more than we can even, again, wrap our head around, there could be like parts of you or like essences of you on all 5 highways. So that's okay if that's the experience that your soul wants to have. But in the current energy, and just going back to, because the question came from the last recording that I did, when you're talking about merging those timelines, it would be as if all 5 of those layers of the highway converged and blended into one. So again, you don't have to do that, but if it feels right to quote unquote collapse the timelines into like one timeline or less time, like even if you just did 3, it might help you feel more centered and more whole during this ascension process, because there's a lot of energy. Again, you guys, you don't have to understand it. You just have to set the intention and let your soul essence know, like, and ask your guides and angels to say, like, bring me into the best, highest, and best timeline. Integrate my energy more into whatever's the highest and best timeline for me. Now, when I say highest and best, I mean spiritually and soul growth wise. Um, if you go into the highest and best, that doesn't always mean the easiest road, right? But if you want the highest and best timeline for your soul growth and your soul advancement, um, you can do that. Or you could say, put me in the highest and best, easiest timeline. Like maybe you don't want absolutely the hardest crush course, whatever. Maybe you want, okay, I want one with a little bit of ease, but still on a growth trajectory. So I hope that's helping. Again, you guys, this is so big. Uh, we'll definitely talk about this again on the next call. So if you guys don't already have that in your calendar, be sure to mark your calendar for the third Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's when we have the open Q&A calls, and we can absolutely talk about that on there. Let me know what other questions come up, or if this recording helps. Because again, you guys, this is such a big, broad subject, and again, I am not a quantum scientist. I don't really understand physics that well. So this is one of those things where, for me personally, faith and trust and just knowing it, like I know in my heart that this is true, even though my brain cannot, like there's no rationalizing this, and there's no logic when it comes to this 5D. It's all about moving into our heart and our soul and trusting from there. So sending you guys lots of love. I hope this did at least help explain it a little bit. And I will talk to you guys soon. Let me know if this actually brings in more questions.